الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وحبيبه عبد القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. That was a good one. I think that, alhamdulillah, because it's coming around to the end of Ramadan, we give salams like, but we can't wait for it to finish. Alhamdulillah, we are coming around to the end of this beautiful month, and it's really sad to see it go. It really is sad to see it go, because we don't know if we're going to be alive again next year to get another opportunity to get closer to Allah, to stack up our list of good deeds. And so, therefore, in this last few days of Ramadan, let's hasten. Let's put in all the effort. It is like the person who runs a competitive race. You see, they put that extra effort, even though they can't go anymore. They put that extra effort to pass that finish line. And if they put that extra effort, the momentum takes them beyond the finish line. You ever see guys like Usain Bolt and so forth, when they run, they don't stop at the finish line. They don't say, I'm finished. They keep on running because that momentum that they had propels them even further. So let us try to have this, the end of this Ramadan propel us even further. Let's say, for example, for most of the nights of Ramadan, we didn't do Salatul Layl. It's very difficult to do Salatul Layl sometimes when it is so close at night. You see? But two rakah, Salatul Shaf, for example, and witr, enough. You see, let's do something extra to keep moving there. You have your parents overseas. You haven't called them in this month. Call them. It's a month of paying sadaqah, for example. You haven't paid any sadaqah, pay it now. And keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. As I mentioned before, Ramadan has a spirit. Ramadan has a spirit. The fasting of the limbs, the eyes, and so forth and so on. These are things that we are supposed to be doing for the rest of our lives. This is the essence of taqwa, for example. So let us try to keep moving and to move forward with as much energy. So by the time Eid comes, we still are moving forward, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I mentioned, many of us, we stay up at night. We try to make sure for Fajr because we are afraid of hunger. Okay? The night before Eid, we sleeping. You miss Fajr. You miss Fajr because now you're not faced with starvation for the rest of the day, right? You miss Fajr. Let's try to not do that. Let's try to keep that momentum going, inshallah, and we'll be successful because we want to escape from an evil death. And this is the topic of the night today, evil death. And if I could finish it tonight, maybe inshallah tomorrow until maybe the next day, if God permits us to fast and so on the next day. I'd like to talk about some of the issues in our community that I think we need to think about and we need to work upon, so we can be the sabiqun. All right? To make this environment a better one for all of us, not just ourselves, but our children, and also the non-Muslims. What we can do, or what we should do, what our attitude should be in this society, and leads to what type of actions we should have. Now we mentioned the first cause of an evil end is if you have Iman, but you also are dabbling into extraneous knowledge and so forth, and you have a type of conflict or a wrong understanding of your deen, which on your deathbed, if you really believe in that thing, it becomes a veil between you and Allah, and you die in disbelief. One example of that is this idea of religion as being the product of society. Religion is not the product of God. Religion is not sent by God, but is created by man. You see? And so people, you have a very, prominent way of thinking in this society about this. So you'd find, like, for example, people might say, let's say, pork is haram because in those days they didn't have refrigerators. Right? And Islam, being wise, made it haram for us because we didn't have refrigerators. The pork might get fastened, might rot. You might know it, you might get sick. But now we have refrigerators, so we don't need to have a restriction on pork. You have people thinking like this. Religion is a product of society. All right? We have this idea being put out especially with respect to hijab, for example. That in that time, hijab was important, because, for example, you needed hijab to distinguish between the believers and the non-believers and, all kinds of different things, and now we don't have those conditions anymore, so therefore, we don't need to have hijab. So you have this idea that religion is a product of society. And it could even go further. You might have some people might say, for example, Islam is an Arab religion. It doesn't have anything to do with me as a European. They forget Christianity, for example, was a Middle Eastern religion as well. But they say this has nothing to do with me. It's an Arab religion. I'm not Arab, so this religion doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with Arabs, for example. And so far, we find people talking about Quran and saying, well, why does the Quran have to be in Arabic? Why can't it be in English? Why can't we pray in English? Why do you have to pray in Arabic, for example? Okay? Without people having any knowledge as to the importance of the Arabic language in its form. Okay? Not necessarily in its meaning. Its meaning is there. As I mentioned before, it is a very important vehicle to convey the deep messages of Islam. But, they say, for example, why? What sense does it make for a Pakistani or a Singaporean or a Malaysian or a Nigerian to be praying in Arabic when they don't understand the language? All right? And so there's not time for question and answer. This is for people. And so they say, no, I shouldn't. They're applying their own types of reasoning to this. There's a concept, what they call mantra. This is a Hindu concept, mantra. It is a word, it's a sound that has spiritual significance, which you do not necessarily need to know the meaning. A good example is the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and its effect upon water molecules. Have you seen that? Have you read about that? Yeah. Its effect upon water molecules. Okay? How water molecules, when you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, on the water molecules will organize themselves in a very, very beautiful pattern. But the same thing doesn't happen if you say, in the name of Allah, the beneficent and the merciful on the water. It doesn't happen. Okay? It happens because of that particular sound on the water. Now, we are over 75% water. We are over 75% water. So when we recite Quran, it has something to do on our nature. And this is why you find, like, for example, non-Muslims having the same uns for Arabic, even though they don't understand it. Right? Even when they say, Inshallah, I see you, okay, they don't think about the meaning, Inshallah. Okay, they feel Inshallah. When they say Subhanallah, they feel Subhanallah. They don't translate it in their mind. When we say Surah Al-Fatiha, you don't have to be translating Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha itself does something to you. Surah Al-Fatiha itself is a vehicle to take you up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have this idea, that religion is relative. Religion is relative. That now we are in the 21st century, and Islam was in the 1400 years ago. We have evolved. Okay, we've become better, and so we are better than the Sabi'un. We are better than the Sabi'un. This is what evolution is. Okay, the generation today is better than the one yesterday. That one yesterday is better than that one the day before. And our children and we ourselves being exposed to this. We are exposed to the fact that, for example, people who had to sail the ocean to get to a certain place, and now we are flying. So you look at technology as proof of that, then you start thinking like this. You see? And so this is deep in your heart. When this is deep in your heart and you are on your deathbed, okay, then these thoughts start coming to you. If you die in that particular situation, you die an evil death. You die with a veil upon you. The second cause of an evil end is having a weak iman. It's having a weak iman. And having, just simply that, a weak iman, and because of having a weak iman, you also have love for the dunya. You see, love for the dunya is related, inversely related. As I mentioned before, inversely related. Love of the dunya is inversely related with iman. The less iman you have, the more dunyawi you become. The more dunyawi you are, the less iman you have. The more iman you have, the less dunyawi you are. So a very good way of knowing what kind of iman you have is a very interesting statement by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Somebody asked him, how do you know whether you are mu'min, you're ahl iman, or whether you are ahl dunya? He says, when somebody comes to your house and they bring something for you, or somebody comes to your house and they ask you for something, which one makes you more happy? Which one makes you more happy? Right? That person bringing something for you, giving you something, or that person who gives you the opportunity to practice charity and give to them. This decides who is a believer and who is more of the dunya. You see, the more iman you have, the less dunyawi you are. The less dunyawi you are, the more you are willing to give of what you have. Whether it's your knowledge, whether it's your wisdom, whether it's your strength, whether it's your wealth, whether it's your time. Okay, the more you have to give to somebody. But the more dunyawi you are, the more you want to keep it for yourself and the less you want to give. Yeah? So the person who would have an evil death is somebody who has a weak iman. They're Muslim, they have a weak iman, and they become Ahl Dunya. When you become Ahl Dunya, when you become loving the dunya, you know, it says, your heart cannot have two masters. You either love the dunya or you love Allah. Doesn't mean to say that you hate the dunya, you know. I want to give you something to be clear about this. When they say hate the dunya, it means hating the dunya as something that is beloved to you for itself. Alright? Because your wife is part of the dunya. Your children are part of the dunya. This masjid is part of the dunya. You guys are part of my dunya and I'm part of your dunya. Alright? I hope you don't hate me. But I don't hate you. But we love in the way of Allah. Remember, you're talking about the vertical aspect. We love fi sabilillah. I love you and you love me because it gets us close to Allah. I love my wife because it gets me close to Allah. And I can love my wife with all my emotions and my heart and my feeling. And when I go away, I miss her and I call her and I talk to her. And when I talk to her, why do I like her so much? Because she helps me get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have a wife that doesn't help you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm sorry. You're married to somebody who is your enemy. And if you love that person, it means that you have the same heart. You know, because thieves like thieves. Thieves find thieves interesting. Criminals find criminals interesting. You see? So you love fi sabilillah. You know, and if maybe, let's say, you have a child who might be going away from Islam or something. You know, you love that child because you love that child in the position as a possible person who could go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see? And you're upset about it because they are not doing what you want them to do and so forth. You see? That is the kind of love that is healthy and is relating. So the more you love the dunya, the less room that you have in your heart for Allah. So then when death comes, it is separating you from that which you love. Death comes to separate you from that which you love. And when you love that thing, you hold on to that thing. You don't want to let it go. Right? Remember I talked to you about the story about the man who loved that vase. That was his dunya. He loved that. You see? That the idea of ghosts in this world, which is real. There are ghosts. People who have been dead and their ruh cannot fly. The ruh cannot go up. The root stays around those things that they are in love with. And yes, a human being can be haunted by a ghost. A human being can be haunted by a ghost. You know, for example, I die and I'm very, 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 very close to my wife or my son or something like that in a dunyawi way, right? I haunt them. I'm always in their dreams, for example. You know, I'm always around them. I cannot leave this world because of them. And it goes the same thing for buildings, it goes the same thing for possessions, and so forth, and so on. So when one dies in that way, where one's heart now goes towards that thing that it is attached to, then that's a veil between them and Allah, and they are lost. They die this death that is an evil death. So we have to be always critical about our relationship with the dunya. We have to be always making this comparison. How much is my iman? How much is my dunya? Remember, this is something that creates fear in our heart, a constructive kind of fear. And we remember that when we are about to die, we should be in a state of hope. In a state of hope. When we're in that state of hope, Allah would remove that particular attraction or attachment, and inshallah we would be saved. The third one, from my point of view, and these especially come from great scholars like Faisal Kashani and so on. These are not my ideas. I'm just telling you these things, right? Research these things and I'm presenting them to you. The third one is even a much more subtle one. That a person's faith might be strong. A person's faith might be strong. But during the course of our lives, sometimes we let our desires overpower us. Okay? Sometimes we let our desires overpower us. Something attractive about something that is wrong that we might be drawn towards. And there's so many different things like this in this society, like pornography, for example. You know, the internet, full of it. Very easy to access. You're not even looking for it. It becomes looking for you, for example. Okay? And you know, us as men, we find women attractive. We find women attractive. So this is something that might come to you at one moment. You might not linger on it, but it can stay in the back of your mind. It can stay there. And sometimes it comes out in your thinking. Not that you encourage it, but it comes out in your thinking almost automatically. And when it comes out, it has a certain type of pleasure. Right? And so sometimes, for example, during our life, these types of things occur to us. I'm going to give you a hint. I think I'm departing the adab of speaking on the minbar, right? So I'm going to speak about it like this. I know a sheikh who used to be a DJ at one time, before he became a Muslim. Okay? And that memory of the fun that he used to have is something that would come to their minds every now and then, and they remember it and they smile and they have pleasure with it. And that thing could come between them and Allah on the day that they are dying. It could come between them and Allah on the day that they're dying. And so what we need to do is to be able to always, when these thoughts come to your mind, you criticize it, you expel it from your mind, you expel all the pleasure associated with that thing in your mind so that it does not come to your mind ever. One way of destroying an attachment to something is to apply a negative association with it. If something is attractive to you, something gives you pleasure, you apply a negative association with it. And this is a very important part of, for example, psychology. We call it behavior modification, for example. So somebody who, let's say, I'm just giving you a random example. Somebody say, for example, they are attached to, let's say, cigarette smoking, right? Every time they think about a cigarette, they get a shock. You know, after a while, they get turned off of cigarette smoking. You can do this to yourself. You don't shock yourself, but you can do this to yourself. You know, I mean, I've known people who they were addicted cigarette smokers. You know, what they would do is they would smoke a cigarette and you know, out it in water. So after a while, the water with the ash and the smell and so becomes negative to them, and so they become turned off from it. So you can attach a negative thing to that. When we have thoughts that lead to ideas of pleasure that are wrong, you should immediately start thinking about the day of judgment. You should immediately start thinking about hell. You should immediately start thinking about Allah being upset with you for going back to that thing, for thinking about that thing, even if you're not doing it, okay, and taking pleasure from it. It's almost like an internal sin. And this is the way you start to fight against these types of internal tendencies. Because when you start thinking about these things, when you embrace these things, eventually they become your friends. Eventually they become part of you. Eventually they become more and more in your thought. And you end up becoming more and more dunyawi, less and less imani, and you could go to hell. But these things now, sometimes they come to you as a flash in your mind. As a flash in your mind. And we know that many times we cannot control our thoughts completely. You know, many times, you know, something comes into your mind, and it comes, right? You know, for example, you might be praying as a jihad. You see, praying as a jihad against those thoughts that come into your mind. You know, one very important thing is not to pay it any attention. That's it. Don't try to keep it out of your mind, because you didn't bring it in your mind anyway. Okay? But it's not to pay it any attention. And after a while, concentration becomes even better and better. You can become more and more focused on your prayer. So you reach a point, for example, where like Imam Ali alayhi salam, you know, he has an arrow in his calf, you see, and they can't remove it while he is in a normal state because it's so painful. They wait till he's praying to move it because he's in another zone. You see, he's not thinking about the pain. Right? So this is what we do. Now, this lahza, this moment that this thing comes into your mind, you can die at that particular moment. You can die at that particular moment. And if you die at that particular moment, you are gone. So we have to try to be able to control our thoughts. This is a very important aspect of Islam. Try to control your thinking. You know, and you know, we all hear about things like meditation. We think that meditation is something that is Buddhist, that is Hindu, but it's not Islamic. That's not so at all. Alright? Meditation is found in all religions, including in Islam. The problem is that meditation has been largely associated as a method, okay, with the Sufis and the Urafa. Okay? It is not associated with ulama as such. They will talk to you about hudul qalb and so forth, but many people don't talk about it as a method. Okay? Meditation basically is keeping extraneous thoughts out of your mind. That's it. Keeping extraneous thoughts out of your mind by not focusing on them and focusing on something else. You know, so one can meditate by focusing on a candle, and one can meditate by focusing on a white dot on a black background, or one can meditate by focusing on the name of Allah. One can meditate by focusing on a thought. Okay? That thought could be, for example, something that resonates with you. You know, many of us, for example, love to think of Allah in a certain way. We love to think of Allah as Ar-Rahman, for example. We love to think of Allah as Ar-Rahim, as a Malik, as a Ghafur, things like this. We focus on this. When we are in prayer, prayer is a kind of meditation. Prayer is a war with your mind. Okay? A war with that part of your mind that is your nafs that wants to intrude upon you because it does not like silence. It does not like stability. It wants to be moving here and there and everywhere. Once you start doing this, you are able to control your thoughts most effectively, and so you are able to fly higher. You see? So you should never be satisfied with your prayer. You should always seek istighfar after your prayer. You know, Allah, I'm praying to you, and you deserve more than what I'm praying to you. You deserve more than this wretched salah that I did. You know, and I promise you that my next salah is going to be better than this one. This is what we have to promise Allah. This is what we have to do. And after a while, you will reach a point, brothers and sisters, you will definitely reach a point where your salah has much more meaning, much more depth. You know, where after your salah, you don't want to leave your prayer, for example, because it is so pleasant and so beautiful and so pleasurable that you like to be in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give salawat to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, and a man may work to perform the good deeds of those who are destined for paradise for 50 years. He's working and he's doing these good deeds of those people who are Ahl Jannah, such that the only thing between him and paradise is as little as the hiccup of a camel. The only difference, the only distance between him and paradise is as little as the hiccup of a camel. And then he will die according to that which he has been destined for. Meaning he will die to go to Jahannam. Right? Why is this? Faiz al-Kashani says that hiccup refers to a thought that enters the heart like other thoughts that come into your mind like a bolt of lightning. And when he latches onto this, on that deathbed, when he latches onto this on that deathbed and he dies in that state, that's when he has an evil death. But I don't want to give you the sense of hopelessness about this. I just want to scare you about this. You see? Because for such a person too, if we have a get out of jail free clause. You're going to get out of jail free clause. And this is our love for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. This is our love for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And it is they who come to our rescue. But coming to our rescue, we have to be close to our salah. We have to take our salah seriously. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam on his deathbed says that our shifa does not get to those people who do not take their salah seriously. Not to those people who don't pray. No. But to those people who don't take the salah seriously. You know, what do you want to be? What do you want to be on the operating table of a surgeon who's not focused on his work? Would you want to be on the operating table of a surgeon who's not focused on his work? Would you want to be on the operating table of a surgeon whose mind is on the fight he had with his wife this morning? Huh? If somebody says you will be operated upon by a surgeon who had a fight with his wife this morning, and you have a choice, what would you say? I respectfully decline, but I'll wait. This is how we should take our salah. Because if our salah is not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of our good deeds are accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, so on your deathbed, yes, this extraneous thought will come to your mind. This illicit pleasure that you had when you were a kid, when you were younger, when you were a teenager, when you were in university years, will have come to your mind. You know, and you might have latched onto it, and at that moment you died, but your salah was on point. Your salah was your act of jihad, al-akbar. Your salah was at that point where you fought against your nafs, you fought against yourself. And that is going to bring Imam Ali alayhi salam to come and visit you on your bed, at your bedside. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and Hazrat Fatima Zahra salam alayha. You know, and that takes your mind somewhere. That takes you somewhere, and you forget that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will rescue you. Remember this. And Allah has said, and I mentioned this before, that don't rely upon your good deeds. You do your good deeds. You have to do your good deeds because we have to get close to Allah. But no amount of good deeds that we do, if it is the sum of all the good deeds in the earth, would be equivalent to Allah's ridaya, would be equivalent to Allah's pleasure, because Allah is the absolute. And Allah says the only thing that would bring my pleasure and would make me forgive you is your hope in me, because He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And He is the one who is going to fulfill that reality that He is. Allah is the source of all mercy and of all goodness. So we always must be operating between these two things of fear and also of hope. And in this life right now, this earthly life that we are doing right now, you know, the predominant feeling that we should have is that of fear. Think about your past, what you have done wrong. Seek forgiveness about this. Always remember that this points to us how evil we can be, and our future as different situations arise that would tell us how evil we will be. Keep between these two things, and we would leave a gathering like this, we would leave our houses, we would encounter other people in a way where we would always strive to be the best, to be the most kind, to be the most considerate, to be the most giving, to be the most forgiving, to be the most indulgent, to be the most helpful to other people, which include not just our Muslim brothers and sisters, but all of mankind and all of creation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.